So anyhow, I promised you this article from the Financial Times. And again, I want to just reset this. Wealth is created by making things. Adam Smith talked about this. There was in fact, I may be wrong on this, but I think it might have even been Aristotle who talked about a stick has no intrinsic value until you carve it, and then it becomes an axe handle, and suddenly it has value. Probably wasn't. It was probably some other economist. But in any case, that's one of the more famous examples. Adam Smith talked about, spinning wool, taking sheep and turning them into sweaters, basically, turning milk into cheese, turning grapes into wine, how manufacturing creates value. And because we don't manufacture anything in the United States, because for the last 30 years we have been exporting our jobs, and we've been doing so to the benefit of transnational corporations. Keep in mind, over 40% of all international trade that the United States is involved with, all trade in and out of the United States, is within single companies. In other words, 40% of all trade in the United States is Hewlett-Packard which is an American company, sets up a factory which they own in China, where they hire Chinese people to make printers at 30 cents an hour, and then they ship those printers back to the United States free of tariffs. It's simply a scheme. It's a scam. It's a scheme to eliminate American labor costs and only have to pay Chinese labor costs. That's what we call free trade. And 40% of all that trade is just what I described. The remaining 60% of trade, more or less, is the classic kind of trade where you're buying things that just aren't made here. In Thailand, they carve sandalwood. We don't even grow sandalwood here. I mean, it's an extreme example, but, for example, we're making Saabs in Sweden or making BMWs in Germany, that kind of thing. Just buying things that you just don't make here in this country. So anyhow, because we don't make things here in this country anymore, we've become a so-called service economy. Remember that phrase from the Clinton administration? We're becoming a service economy. It's a new world. It'll be a fine thing, the service economy. There is no such thing. Service economy is an oxymoron. I'll wash your car, you mow my lawn. It seems like something's going on. It seems like we're both working hard. It seems like we're trading something of value. But in fact, nothing of value is being produced. A service economy is not a real economy. A manufacturing economy is a real economy. So anyhow, here's the article. This is Harvey Morris at the United Nations writing in today's Financial Times, the headline, UN economists warn the dollar, that's our currency, is in for a hard landing next year. The current strength of the U.S. dollar is temporary, and the U.S. currency risks a hard landing in 2009, according to a team of UN economists who foresaw a year ago that a U.S. downturn would bring the global economy to a near standstill. In their annual report on the world economy published today, the economists say the dollar's sharp rebound this autumn has been mainly driven by a flight to the safety of the international reserve currency as the financial crisis spread beyond the U.S. The overall trend, however, remains a downward one, reflecting perceptions that the U.S. debt position is approaching unsustainable levels. Quoting the study, investors might renew their flight to safety, though this time away from dollar-denominated assets, thereby forcing the U.S. economy into a hard landing and pulling the global economy into a deeper recession. This is the annual survey of the United Nations, the UN's Department of Economic and Social Affairs. They note there has been a massive shift of global financial assets into U.S. Treasury bills, driving their yields almost to zero and pushing the dollar sharply higher. But at the same time, the U.S.'s external debt has risen to new heights that could provoke a dollar collapse. Now, a dollar collapse is one incredibly mind-bogglingly hell of a scary thing. I was in Argentina when the Argentina currency collapsed. People in normal middle-class suburban households. I was staying with a family down there, some people that I knew. And all down the street, you would see people with their televisions or their sofas in their front yards with price tags on them. They were selling things in order to be able to pay their mortgages. That's what happens when a currency collapses. A country gets real poor real fast. The report recommends reform of the international reserve system away from an almost exclusive reliance on the dollar and towards a globally backed multi-currency system. Why? Because 26 years of Reaganomics has destroyed the dollar. The only reason anybody takes dollars right now is because oil is denominated in dollars, And the oil-producing countries are rapidly moving away from that. Venezuela doesn't want to take dollars anymore. Iran doesn't want to take dollars anymore. Increasingly, countries are saying, nope, not going to take dollars. And so we may well see the prediction that people who put their money in other currencies, buying Canadian loonies, buying Swiss francs, things like that, just parking them in money markets in foreign currencies, or who buy commodities, who are buying oil stocks, gold stocks, things like that, or, physical commodities. As the dollar collapses, we'll see the value of their investments hold. But otherwise, America is going to get real poor real fast, according to the United Nations. Why? Because we don't create wealth here anymore. And a lot of our natural resources have been stripped. There's not that much left. Reagan and Bush and Clinton and Bush and their buddies have raped this country. They have taken everything we've got. They have stripped our manufacturing. 40% of all international trade is simply a scheme to offshore labor. Millions, tens of millions of well-paying jobs, good-paying jobs have left this country. And just like I say, people say, well, do you want the government telling you who your doctor should be? That's the wrong question. The question should be, do you want the government telling you who your doctor should be, or do you want a private corporation telling you who your doctor should be? Similarly, do you want the government defining your trade policy? Well, the actual question is, do you want the government defining your trade policy? Or do you want Sony defining your trade policy? Or Hewlett-Packard? Do you want it to be transnational corporations, as it is with the WTO? Or do you want it to be sovereign states whose elected officials are answerable to we the people? It's just that simple. And if we don't return to a rational trade policy, we've got nothing left, and our dollar's going to collapse, and we're going to be so screwed. And the Republican, Dick Cheney has already moved all of his money out of dollars. Little footnote in his financial disclosure statements before the last election, it was like 5-6 months ago, little footnote in Cheney's disclosure statements that he no longer has any of his hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, close to $100 million, none of it is in dollars anymore. It's represented in European funds and in Saudi funds and in Halliburton stock, and Halliburton's no longer a U.S. company. Now, what does Dick Cheney know that you and I don't? Well, now you know.